You ever noticed how a storm seems to lose its strength the moment the winds calm down? That's exactly what happens when a narcissist realizes you no longer care. No reactions, no fear, no control, only silence. And that silence unsettles them more than any shouting ever could. When a narcissist senses you've stopped caring, the first thing that hits them is the loss of control. For them, control isn't just a desire, it's the core of how they connect with others. From the very start, they observe you closely. They learn what makes you happy, what makes you upset, what triggers a reaction. They create a psychological blueprint designed specifically for you. They use compliments, guilt, fear, charm, and even silence as tools to manipulate and maintain emotional dominance. This isn't love. It's possession disguised as affection. And once you begin to pull away mentally, emotionally, and even spiritually, that control they once had starts to fall apart. To a narcissist, control equals validation. If they can make you chase them, cry over them, argue with them, or even hate them intensely, they feel alive. Your reactions feed their ego. Your confusion strengthens their sense of superiority. As long as they can provoke you, they believe they still matter. But when you stop reacting, when you stop explaining, defending, or justifying yourself, when your silence becomes steady and unshakable, that illusion of control fades. It doesn't fade quietly. It collapses aggressively in their mind. They begin to notice the shift long before you think they do. They are highly sensitive to power dynamics, especially when control starts slipping away. They might act unaware. They may pretend everything is normal, but behind the mask, panic begins to grow. Your detachment confuses them. Why aren't you reaching out anymore? Why aren't you checking in, arguing, or crying? They replay past conversations in their mind. They analyze your calmness. For someone addicted to control, that stillness becomes terrifying. At this stage, the narcissist might try to regain their footing. They'll say things meant to provoke you, maybe something harsh, something passive-aggressive, something that once always triggered a response. They want to see if there's still a connection they can pull. But when you remain unaffected, they start to feel exposed and vulnerable, something they work hard to avoid. Their identity is built on being untouchable, in control, admired or feared, but never ignored. Indifference from someone they once controlled signals that the game is ending. This loss of control may also push them into a kind of reflection, but not in a healthy way. They won't sit and think about what they did wrong to push you away. Instead, they'll wonder how they lost the ability to keep you attached. They'll blame you, calling you cold, disloyal, or ungrateful. They cannot process that the issue was never your loyalty, but their misuse of it. So they quickly shift into defensive behavior, acting as though they were the one who left, rewriting the narrative so they don't have to face the truth. They didn't lose you because you changed. They lost you because they never truly had you, only your emotional energy. Even with all this internal chaos, they will often pretend everything is fine. Narcissists are performers. They may start showing off new relationships, achievements, or a sudden wave of happiness, trying to trigger jealousy or doubt in you. But it's just an act, a performance, to regain control, not over you directly, but over how they are perceived. They can't control you anymore, so they try to control the story. What they fail to understand is that when someone truly stops caring, they've already processed the loss. They've already grieved the illusion and the emotional damage. What remains is clarity. And clarity destroys manipulation. So the narcissist doesn't just lose a person, they lose the illusion that they were ever truly in control. And for them, that's one of the most painful losses. When a narcissist realizes you no longer care, one of their most common responses is either explosive anger or complete emotional withdrawal. Both are defense mechanisms designed not only to regain dominance, but also to punish you for detaching emotionally. This isn't random. It's deeply rooted in their fragile ego and their need to remain the center of your emotional world, whether through love, fear, or chaos. Narcissistic anger is very different from normal anger. It is intense, disproportionate, and often unpredictable. It comes from a deep wound of perceived rejection or abandonment. The moment you stop reacting, stop chasing, and stop engaging in their patterns, they experience what psychologists call a narcissistic injury, a hit to their carefully built self-image. That injury doesn't just hurt, it burns deeply. Instead of facing that discomfort or reflecting on their actions, they project it outward. You become the focus of that pain. You may hear harsh insults, see irrational reactions, and experience attempts to damage your character. They might say things meant to hurt deeply, to question your worth, to attack your identity, and to make you doubt your progress. But the purpose isn't only to hurt you. It's to pull you back into emotional involvement. The narcissist doesn't care if you cry, yell, or argue. As long as you respond, as long as you feel something, they gain energy from it. Your reaction reassures them that they still matter, that they still have influence. They thrive on this toxic connection where chaos is mistaken for passion and manipulation is mistaken for love. If anger fails to provoke you, if you stay calm in front of their outbursts, they may suddenly switch strategies, moving from intensity to cold detachment. Silence becomes another powerful tool. It's not peaceful. It's intentional and punishing. It is meant to make you feel invisible, unimportant, or abandoned. They may ignore your messages, act like you don't exist, or disappear completely, only to return when they sense your emotional defenses weakening. This silence isn't about needing space. It's about control. It's a calculated move meant to trigger insecurity within you. The narcissist believes that if they withdraw attention long enough, you will come back just to feel something again. This cycle between anger and silence creates a psychological trap. For those who have been involved with a narcissist, these extremes can be confusing. You might begin questioning yourself, was I too harsh? Did I make a mistake? That's exactly the intention. The narcissist wants you emotionally unsettled, doubting your reality so they can return and regain control. But what they don't realize is that true detachment is strong. When you genuinely stop caring, their anger becomes meaningless noise, and their silence becomes peaceful distance. You begin to see clearly. You understand that neither their outbursts nor their absence is about you. It's about their struggle to stay relevant in a situation where their manipulation no longer works. And that realization is extremely frustrating for them. Whether through loud, destructive anger or cold, calculated silence, the narcissist is reacting to a truth they cannot accept. They are losing control. And for someone whose sense of identity depends on controlling how others think and feel about them, that is a frightening reality. So they resist it in the only ways they know, by becoming louder, harsher, colder, and more distant, hoping you will break and they will regain their position. When a narcissist realizes you no longer care, their first reaction is not understanding or growth. It's desperation. That desperation pushes them to manipulate again, but this time in a different way. It's no longer the subtle charm or gentle mind games from before. Now it's chaotic, disorganized, and driven by fear. They sense you slipping away and will try every tactic they know to pull you back. This is when the intense affection returns. The emotional withdrawal appears again. The guilt tactics begin, and the role of the victim becomes more visible. They may start acting like they've changed completely. Suddenly, they are kind, attentive, and saying everything you once wanted to hear. They might say things like they've been thinking about the relationship, or that they didn't realize how much they hurt you. But these are not genuine realizations. They are calculated efforts to rebuild the emotional bond and make you question your decision. They may bring up shared memories that once meant something to you, trying to create a sense of nostalgia. They might apologize, not out of real regret, but to get a reaction from you. Every action is intentional, and they are hoping you respond. If this approach doesn't work, they shift toward guilt. They start reminding you of everything they claim to have done for you, trying to make you feel responsible for their pain. They start twisting the past. They magnify their sacrifices and minimize their harmful behavior. Phrases like, "After everything I've done for you, this is how you treat me," become very common. The intention is to make you question your own feelings. They want you to wonder if maybe you overreacted, if perhaps you were too harsh, if just maybe they deserve another opportunity. It's emotional manipulation wrapped in sentiment. They understand that guilt is a powerful weapon, especially when used against someone who once cared deeply. Then comes the role of victimhood. This is when the narcissist presents themselves as the one who was wronged. They may tell mutual friends, family members, or even people online that you abandoned them, that you became distant, that they were trying while you walked away. It's not enough for them to lose control over you. They also want to influence how others see you. They crave sympathy. They want an audience that will support their version of events. And in some situations, they begin looking for new emotional sources, someone else to admire them, to boost their ego, to step into the role you left behind. Yet, even while pursuing someone new, they often continue trying to pull you back in, because your detachment still feels like a wound they can't ignore. Throughout all of this, there is a strong sense of urgency behind their behavior. The manipulation becomes heavier, more intense, because they sense your emotional door closing. Narcissists depend on emotional reactions. When you are angry, hurt, or even defending yourself, you are still giving them attention. But when you completely stop reacting, they begin to fall apart. It's like trying to keep a fading flame alive while a storm surrounds it. They panic, they scramble, they become reckless. They might even cycle through all their tactics within a single day. Affection in the morning, guilt by afternoon, and cold silence by evening. These last attempts at manipulation are not about love. They are about survival, emotional survival, for someone whose identity depends on how others respond to them. They don't know who they are without an audience, without someone to influence, without someone emotionally attached to them. Your indifference exposes everything. It shows them a reflection they can't tolerate, one that reveals their lack of genuine connection, the emptiness behind their charm, and the fact that their tactics no longer work. So they push harder, not because they truly care about you, but because they cannot accept that you've stopped caring about them. When a narcissist realizes you no longer care, they go through an internal collapse that most people never witness. On the outside, they may seem calm or unaffected, but internally, their ego begins to break down. You're seeing isn't just disappointment or pain, it's something far deeper and more fragile. The narcissist identity is built around a carefully crafted image of superiority, control, and importance. They rely heavily on the validation and emotional energy of others. So when you stop reacting, when you stop seeking their approval or engaging in their drama, it's like cutting off their supply. Without that supply, their sense of self begins to weaken. This ego collapse doesn't appear as quiet reflection. It shows up as confusion, anger, and desperation. Narcissists depend on illusions. They believe they are more intelligent, more attractive, more important than others. These beliefs are not grounded in reality. They are defenses against deep insecurity. They need others to reflect those beliefs back to them. They need admiration, fear, or envy. When someone close to them detaches emotionally, that reflection disappears. Suddenly, the narcissist is forced to face a truth they've been avoiding for a long time, that they are not as powerful or essential as they believed. This realization is extremely painful, but they cannot express it in a healthy or vulnerable way. Instead of showing sadness or regret, they react with anger or withdrawal. They may try to rebuild their ego by blaming you, convincing themselves that you were ungrateful, disloyal, or unworthy. This blame is not just about hurting you. It's about protecting themselves from the truth that their manipulation failed. Because if they accept that someone saw through them and walked away without looking back, It completely shatters their illusion. That kind of emotional exposure is unbearable for someone who built their identity on being untouchable. To cope with this ego injury, they often create a new version of reality in their mind. In that version, they were not abandoned or ignored. They were the ones who chose to leave. You were not strong or healed. You were cold and uncaring. This narrative helps them preserve their false sense of superiority. They may even share this version with others to gain sympathy and admiration. They cannot accept that you walked away because you saw them clearly. That level of clarity threatens their entire emotional structure. Sometimes this collapse leads them to become fixated on you, not because they love you, but because they want to regain control. They want to prove to themselves and others that they can still influence you. They may observe your life from a distance, checking if you miss them, if you're struggling, if you've truly moved on. Your peace becomes evidence of their failure, and your silence becomes louder than any argument you ever had. In their perspective, detachment equals defeat. If they cannot provoke you, they feel erased. For a narcissist, becoming emotionally irrelevant is one of the most frightening experiences. That is why this ego collapse feels so intense. It's not just about losing a relationship. It's about losing the image they created of themselves. It forces them to face an emptiness they've been hiding behind charm, control, and manipulation. And when someone walks away unaffected and unmoved, that emptiness becomes impossible to ignore. When all their usual strategies fail to bring you back, they often begin searching for a new source of emotional supply. This is not random, it's a survival response. Narcissists don't just want attention, they depend on it to maintain their sense of worth. Your indifference becomes a reflection they cannot tolerate. So instead of facing that discomfort, they turn outward. They begin looking for someone new who can validate them and feed their emotional needs. This process usually happens quickly. Narcissists dislike emotional emptiness, and your silence creates a gap that threatens their identity. Instead of reflecting or healing, they move on to find someone else. They look for individuals who are open, empathetic, or even vulnerable, someone they can impress and eventually control. This is not about genuine connection, it's about admiration, influence, and emotional energy. The new person is not chosen because of true compatibility, but because they are available and willing to provide attention, praise, and reaction. The narcissist may present themselves as a victim to this new person, sharing stories about how they were mistreated or abandoned. This creates sympathy, which quickly turns into emotional involvement. The cycle begins again. Attention, charm, admiration, until the new person slowly begins to see the truth. For a while, the narcissist feels powerful again. They are no longer focused on the emotional wound caused by your indifference. Instead, they cover it with a new distraction. During this phase, they may even try to display this new connection in ways meant to reach you through mutual contacts, online activity, or subtle remarks designed to provoke a reaction. They want to trigger jealousy. They want proof that they still affect you emotionally. If you respond with anger or sadness, they feel validated. If you remain silent, they feel the impact of your detachment once again. But instead of facing that feeling, they intensify their efforts to display happiness, trying to convince themselves and others that they have moved on successfully. What they fail to understand is that replacing one source of attention with another does not solve anything. It only delays the inevitable. The same pattern repeats because the core issue, their inability to form genuine, balanced emotional connections, remains unresolved. Over time, the charm fades, the mask begins to slip, and the new person starts noticing the same behaviors that made you walk away. Eventually, the narcissist ends up in the same position again, frustrated, dissatisfied, and searching for validation once more. It becomes a pattern of constant chasing, never real fulfillment. While they pursue new sources of attention, they may still keep an eye on you from a distance. Narcissists often maintain a mental list of past partners. People who once provided emotional supply. They might suddenly reach out, acting as if nothing ever happened, or send a vague message just to test your response. If you reply even slightly, it signals to them that the door may still be slightly open.